Hello class. Today we're going to look at slope one more way. We're going to look at it, how we can find it from a formula. Okay. So we're still looking at this particular standard. We still want to be able to write an equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. And we're still looking for ways of finding the m. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on today. Okay, so what have we learned about slope so far? Well, we've learned that we can find slope from a graph by using rise over run. Okay, or fall over run, depending upon if it's a positive slope or a negative slope. We've learned that from a table or a chart, we can use delta y divided by delta x, the change on the right-hand side, the y values, divided by the change on the left-hand side values, or the x values. And we can find slope. Today, we're going to look at slope using a formula, where what if I only give you 2 points, how can you find slope? And then tomorrow, we're going to look at slope one more way. How do we find it as a rate of change? Okay, so let's investigate slope and what we already know. Well, if I'm given a graph, I know that I can find slope using what we call rise over run. Okay, so I can do m is equal to, and we pick any 2 points. It doesn't matter which points you pick. I like picking 2 that are close together. And we look, how did I go from the left point to the right point? So I'm going to look for how did I go from this point to this point. Now when we do that, we're always going to do the rise first, the y-axis, because we know that our slope is found by the y divided by x, or delta y divided by delta x. So in a graph, that is the change on the y, which is the up and down, divided by the change across. So in this particular case, we go up 3 and we go over 1. So we rise 3, we run 1, so our slope is 3, just like that. Now it doesn't matter which points you choose. I could choose this first point and this last point if I wanted to. And we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 over 1, 2, 3, 4. 12 over 4. And if we simplify 12 over 4 down, we still get 3. As long as we choose 2 points along that line, we can find the slope using rise over run. Right? Well, what if we're given a t-chart? Well, this is the t-chart that made that same graph, and we look at the same thing, the delta y divided by the delta x. What is my change on the y side? Increased by 3. What's my change on the left side? Increased by 1. So our delta y is 3. Our delta x is 1, so our slope is still 3. Okay? Well, today what we're going to look at is how do I look at it in terms of a formula. There is a formula that we can use. M is equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So let's figure out what this is all about. Okay? So really what we do is we choose 2 points. So I'm going to choose this point and this point. All right? So all we have to do is we write those points down. What are the coordinates? So the first coordinate I'm going to use is -1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, -4. -1, -4, and I'm going to choose this point, which is 1, 2. And all we're going to do is plug values into this formula. Now, how do we get those values? Which ones, what are they? Well, here's what you do. There's a process that I want you to follow. Step number 1, label your points. I'm going to label this point number 1. I'm going to label this point number 2. Okay, now what that basically means is that my first point, they're going to be my x1 and my y1. So this becomes x1 and this becomes y1. So my number 2 point then would be x2 and y2. Now that I know what my numbers represent, I'm just going to plug them into the formula. M is equal to, well, it says y2 minus y1. And again, we put our y's on top because our slope is always the change in y divided by the change in x. Okay, so we look at y2, which is 2, minus, and it's always minus, y1, which is -4, divided by, then I do the same thing with my x's. x2 is 1 minus -1. Now you could type this into your calculator if you're not very good with integers, but I'm going to go ahead and do it just by hand. So I know if it's minus, I'm going to change subtraction to addition next to its opposite. So I end up with 2 plus 4, which is 6. And I do the same thing on the bottom and get 2. Now, if we take our 6 and our 2, we divide that, we end up with 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that's 3 representations of the same particular graph. So this one, we found the slope straight from the graph. On this one, we found the slope straight from a t-chart. And on this one, we found the slope using our formula. And we got the same answer all 3 different ways. So why do we need to know this particular method? Well, sometimes all they do on STAR is they give you 2 points. And we have to figure out what's the line that passes through those 2 points. Okay, so that's what we're going to do on this particular problem. So again, step number 1 is label your points. Here is point 1, here is point 2. And it does not matter which one you choose. Okay, it's just whichever one you say is number 1, that's going to be your x1, y1. Whichever one you say is going to be number 2, that's going to be your x2 and your y2. And then we plug them into the formula. Okay, so our formula is m equals y2, which is 6, minus y1, which is 3, divided by x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is negative 5. And then we evaluate. 6 minus 3 is 3. 2 minus negative 5, well, we'll change my minus to plus next to its opposite. 2 plus 5 now is 7. And 3 over 7 doesn't simplify. So the slope of the line that passes through these 2 points is 3, 7. That's all there is. So let's see if we can try another one. What about this one? Now this one's going to be an interesting one. Okay, so we do the same thing. Okay, but this time I'm going to switch it up on you so you can see that it really doesn't matter. I'm going to say this point's going to be my first point, and this one's going to be my second. So that means negative 9 will be x1, and 5 will be y1. 8 will be x2, and 5 will be y2. And we plug in our values. So m equals y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So 5 minus 5 gives me 0. And 8 minus negative 9, well, 8 plus positive 9 gives me 17. So I end up with 0 divided by 17. So if I were to type that into the calculator, I'm going to get 0 as an answer. Now, we've learned that if I have a line that has a slope of 0, that line is going to be just a horizontal line. That's all it's going to be. It's going to be a horizontal line. Okay? So it has no slope. Well, a slope of 0, which means it's basically just a flat line. So in order for us to find slope when given 2 points, you label your points as 1 and 2. And then you label your individual numbers as x1, y1, x2, y2. Once you've done that, you just plug those numbers in to the formula and solve for slope. Until next time.